session. Good morning, one and all. And previous class we have discussed about the basic of JavaScript, how it's come and when it is invented, and the difference between the Java and JavaScript. Now we are going to talk about the JavaScript design principles. What is the design principles we have? When we talk about in the principle, then first we should know about the layer. They help us to organize your, that is the model of the JavaScript. And when you design any software, why you build the software? That is a very simple thing. We are making the software to solve the problem, right? Certain problems which you need to not able to do that, right? So you want to be online, right? And you want to test something that okay, what data you are entering is copied from internet or not. So that is also one of the software. But when the problem is that you have to correct or you have to find the plagiarism. That is example one of the software. Then when you are going to design, that means obviously you are going to solve the problem. And it's often like helpful to abstract the solution, right? Because you are going to build a cognitive model, okay, model that you are going to implement. So whenever we know the problem, then you have to think for the solution. So what model you are going to build, that you will be thinking about. And when this will happen, then definitely that means you are going to architect something, and that will happen such as with the help cognitive model, and actually why it's termed called as layer. When we talk about in object-oriented programming, the software layer, whatever we are going to use here, is a way of conceptually grouping programming classes that have similar functionalities and dependencies. Okay, that means you are going to group all the programming class what you are going to use, and then after you are going to use this to build the functionality and dependencies with that into the object-oriented programming. In layers, we have some of the common layers, right? You have studied in computer network, right? The layer, right? The same way here you have in different, okay. Here we have three different types of layers, like presentation layer, business layer, and data layer. What is the presentation layer? That means whatever the classes you are going to use, so that will be focused on the user interface, that is UI. That means how user is going to interact with the application. Like example, when you open the Facebook or when you open the google.com, right? So what happened? What is the interface you have? That means how you are going to interact. That means you have a search box, and using the search box you are going to search something. So that is the user, and that is you are going to focus. So that will be the class will be there and focus. That is the presentation. When we talk about the second business layer, that means the classes that model real world entities like a customer, you know that very well. Like real world entities are like customer, product, sales, whatever the things are this. And these all terms which are related to the real world that comes into the business layers. Then the third one, data layer. What will be happen data layer? Now you have the UI, right? You have the like real world entities. That means now both are now that is going to be interact through the UI. When it is interaction will happen, obviously you require some data, right? You require some source. Then third step, that means third layer, we require a data layer. That means whatever the classes you are going to use, that will handle the interaction with data sources. So whatever the data source you are going to use. You can see here example, conceptual ideas, For the just layer, you can see that the below layer you have the HTML. Obviously, whenever you are going to build, first HTML compulsory required, then you are going to use CSS. Then you can see I'm using a JavaScript at a presentation layer. I'm using another JavaScript validation layer, another JavaScript that is the asynchronous, that is Ajax, another JavaScript that is the framework or jQuery, as I have told you in previous class also. And these things are like, you can see that why different kind of JavaScript is there. As I mentioned in the previous presentation, stating that the JavaScript, one way you are going to do the like client side validation. That means whenever you have a form, you are going to just check the user is entering the data correctly or not. Okay, that is the thing. And then after, once you have, that means you are going to select the country. Okay, India. In that you have to select your state. The moment, because you have several country over there, right? When you select several country, then again accordingly you should populate the data of your state. When how it will happen? Then we require the Ajax. When you have the Ajax, then you will require, might be some framework also required. Then you will be using the certain framework, whichever you require as per your requirement. Okay, so this is a conceptual idea for the getting a layer into the your development. Come little depth of all the layers. So as I said, presentation layer, this types of programming focus on the display of information. Does it mean? As I said, right, UI part. That means the user should not get confused, okay, where they have to click, which place you have to submit, hit the button submit. Suppose you make a website where the user has to search where is the about us. You have given us some form and or some link. Go to this website and find out some Google form. What happened? User will go to the website and will keep searching where it is, and they will be not able to find it, or it take time to find. What happened? The information is not clearly visible, or some other ways. So this type of programming, whenever you are going to use in presentation layer, that means first you are going to focus on the display of information. Then JavaScript will alter the HTML of page, okay, and the result in a change, it will be visible to the users. And this presentation layer will include, okay, it will be including the common things. Like what are the things we included? Like creating, hiding, showing division tags, divs, using tabs to show multiple views, or having arrow to the page through the result set. These are the things you can do in this presentation layer. The layer is most closely related to the user experience and the most visible to the end user, right? As I mentioned, right? Because I am saying always UI, user interface. Because user interface, as much the user interface is good for the user, they will keep visiting on the website. Same, any social media. See, you have social media, Twitter, but very less people will be having account on Twitter. But when you ask the people, do you have account on Facebook, Instagram? Yes. Why? Because it's clear, you will get to know, okay, this picture is there. Okay, I can post a picture. But in Twitter, a part of that, it's not there. These people is online, you want to chat. There is no like kind of others. It's just like a tweet of information. So what happened? There, some people say that, okay, this UI is not good, I don't want it. Okay, and they will exit. And mostly people will be on Facebook. Why? Because you know the UI, where to go, what to click, okay, what is visible, what is the hidden there, what you can hide from the user, that is the in presentation. When you have the validation layer, that means you are going to validate the logic, whatever we are going to implement. The JavaScript can also use to validate logic aspect of user experience. For example, when you are validating the form, suppose you have given a form is given where you have to enter your email ID. Then email ID is valid, someone will write @email.com. Right? Does it email exist? Or someone just write their name and leave it. Does it valid email ID? No, because email ID consists of some domain extension. Then it has to be validated. Then this second layer, that validation will happen. That is another validation layer. And it is used for conjunction with the presentation layer to create a coherence, means coherent user experience, where a message to the presentation layer highlighted the bad field. Means suppose you are entering anything and you have missed out. So how you will focus to the users you are missing on the form. Might be you have observed some of the website when you are filling the form, and if you not enter some name or something, you have a date of birth and you have not entered and you are going to select. And what will happen? The moment you click on submit button, what happens? It shows that red light. This is the bad field. That means you have it will be highlighted that you have not filled it. Right? Then you have to fill. So that's why it says that is the conjunction between this. And the both layer exist on client machine. That means it is not going to the server side. It's the validation will happen always on the client machine. That means user machine on our system. And it is going to just intention to pre-validate forms before making any submission. Before you are going to submit, then it will be happen like this way. That is the validation. Asynchronous layer, that means JavaScript operates in synchronous manner, where a request when you send to the server, the required response before the next line of the code can be executed, it is required. As I said, right? The moment you select the state, right? So, or in the state, what are the cities are there, or what are the districts are there, that has to be populated. And during this wait time, when you select this, so what happens? During the wait time between your request and response, the browser sites, it is in loading state. That means it will be retrieving the information from the website. And then it will update on the user portal. In asynchronous layer, it can route requests to the server in the background. That means it is not going to visible when we talk about the synchronous manner. That means might be you have seen that some of the website when you click on the form, suppose city, what happened? It will get refresh the page, and then you will see the next step, that is your particular district list are getting appear. That means that is synchronous. When we see in asynchronous, that means whenever it happens, the request to the server will happen in the background. You will be not able to see that, right? And when it happens, the moment it happens, automatically select city. Just you will see the same page will like next wherever you have defined that only that link will get highlighted and you will get your data. So validation will happen immediately. And this layer, that is asynchronous layer, are considered as advanced version of both presentation and validation layer. Now we ask, right, users without JavaScript, they do exist? Yes, they do exist, like a web crawler, browser plugin, text-based client, visually disabled client, right? That means, as I mentioned even previously, right, web crawler. What is the web crawler? That means when you search anything on the Google, any search engine, Google or Bing or Yahoo whichever search engine you want. When the moment you use the search engine, and if something data is not there, they will create a bot, and it or it's create as a crawler. It's create a bot, and it will throw to this entire world server to catch that keyword and pull it in Google search, right? And when it happen, now you created a website. Now you want to be your website to get listed into the Google website. Then you are going to use the crawler. Browser plugins. So it is just some piece of software. That means its example is there. You have used might be add-ins, right? Or you have see that or add-on in Mozilla. In even add-on is there in the plugin is there in the Google Chrome. You might be have seen that okay, you are watching the YouTube and you want to block the all the advertisement which comes between that, right? Then YouTube ad blocker, that is the plugins are there that you are going to use. That is the another text based clients. That is some client are using the text based browser, and it's all like a command interface. Like example is your software called Linux, Lynx. Okay. Next, visually disabled client. That means a visually disabled client will use the special web browser to read the content of the web page. Okay, so that is for that purpose. So this is all will be defined without the JavaScript. There is something called as Noaa Script also. Okay, when you talk about the Noaa Script, what is the Noaa Script? The Noaa Script tag will define the alternate content for the user that have disabled a script in the browser or have a browser that does not support scripting, right? Maybe some browser, if you use old version of the browser, it will give you that warning message saying that some JavaScript is missing, something like that. Then you have to define this Noaa Script tag, and this Noaa Script, the tag, that means the element can be used in both. Either you can use in head section also, you can use in body section also. And when you use this inside the heading element, that means this no link will contain like your link, style, and other meta element also. And this content inside the Noaa Script element will be displayed if the script are not supported. People use this one because developer don't know that on your browser what I am writing the JavaScript will display or not. So what happened? How the user should get notified? How user will know that okay, it need to be displayed, okay, and or that is the you have disabled the this UI or something like that. This is the things where you are going to do that. Okay, this is the way that Noaa Script tag will be implemented. And the graceful degradation and progressive enhancement. Like you have seen that over so many years that we have come with several advanced technology. Earlier, I have seen that i5 using i5 and i4, and during those days in 2005, 6, when people used to develop any web application, then they used to test on different browser. They have some certain system where all the browser version will get open like i4, 5, 6, 7, and they will open the website. They will see that is there. And now you can see that the most of the browser version it support the JavaScript. And if not work, then obviously it will be a display here. Even in mobile, you can see that, right? Even all the JavaScript also working that. And if that case, then you are going to follow true strategy. If it is not working, okay, then you are going to see the graceful degradation and progressive enhancement. Okay, what is the progressive enhancement? In the case developer creates a site using your CSS, JavaScript, HTML feature, and that is supported by all browser of the certain age or new. That means whenever it's a new or the certain duration, right? to that baseline site. The developer can now progressively, that means for each browser, it will be enhance the functionality to their site on the capability of the user browser. That means the user, the developer, what happened, they will be having the certain feature and they will get that okay, in this the enhancement that is something is not working, then progressively they will add the functionality and they will have the site where the browser will give the all the capability whatever is required. When you talk about the graceful degradation, that means with the strategy that you develop your site for the ability of current browser. That means for those users who are not running the current browser, that means you are having your browser is not updated, right? It's not supporting suppose HTML5 or CSS3. Then in that case, what will happen? Then you have to provide alternative page. Another example, I'll tell you this. You open any German website or any other country website. Okay. Then what happened? There you will see that, right? It will automatically it will show you that you have to change the language. That means English. Right? That means this is the like you are not able to catch. You are not using the current browser. Then you have to change. The same way, if they have some functionality and that is not working, okay, then what happened when you open, as I mentioned, right, it is open in German language. I am not able to see. They were given the option, right, alternative option where you can change and you can see that one. Like the same way it is there. So that is the idea actually behind this. So idea is that the site is degraded. So degradation means that is the functionality is not working. Suppose another way also possible, like I have implemented some functionality, okay, and I have opened the website. Generally it happened in the government website especially. And when you open the government website, they will say that especially you should use below that you go and have a look on any government website. Below that it will mention that please use Google Chrome this version. They will specify clearly, or even for internet banking especially. Sometimes even, and especially I'll tell you, if you know any chartered accountant or the auditor, you ask them, they usually face the problem for filing the income tax, or they face certain issues on the government portal, because what happened, their code is not upgraded where they can go and update it. So what happened, it has to be populated. So without the populating the JavaScript error code and without considering the message, it's tell to the user, okay, you have to use this browser. And it happened, might be you also have observed this. I have observed this so many times. So that is actually called as degradation. That means you have to degrade. The functionality is not working on this URL. You have to change this other URL. That is the graceful degradation. Next, where does JavaScript go? Okay, that's how the JavaScript is implemented. Right? As we have seen in previously in CSS, how you are going to add the CSS. The same way, you have the different way to link JavaScript in your HTML page. The same way, here we have three different ways, that is the inline, embedded and external. The same way CSS also it was there, inline, embedded and external. Let's go and through this and we'll see. The first one, when you want inline, that means you are writing a JavaScript, okay, into the same line of HTML code. The name itself you can understand, that is the inline. That means a JavaScript will refer to the practice of including the JavaScript code directly within the certain HTML attribute. And this JavaScript, that means inline JavaScript, is real maintenance nightmare. You can see here the example what I have used here: anchor tag, hyperreference, and JavaScript open window. If someone click on more info, what will happen? Some window will open, okay, and whatever the information you want to give. We have seen that input button. The moment you click on the button, the alert message will populate. What message you want? Like, are you sure? That means when you are going to hit submit any form, we have seen that we are implementing this one. That is your inline JavaScript. That embedded JavaScript, that means you are going to write the script code, that is the script element, within the head tag, or even you can use in the body also as per the requirement, and you can use that embedding tag. In the same way, embedded JavaScript refers to the practicing of placing JavaScript code within the script element. How it will be there? Same way, you have to write the script element, type is equal to text or JavaScript, and you are going to give alert hello world and semicolon. The same syntax how you used to write in the programming, semicolon. The same way here you have to use. The third one, that is the external JavaScript. That means how you are going to populate from external file. So external file, whenever you are going to create, you have to create with .js. Okay, and you have to even add into the head section like script type is equal to text or JavaScript, src is equal to the file where you store the location of the JavaScript, and the extension must be .js. These are the three different way you can define the JavaScript, and that is the best also. Okay, and especially in the production side, that means live website, when you are going to the technique you have to use like generate embedded style. That means always have the practice of using embedded style to reduce the request, because you can manage the code externally using the file. Even you can use iframe, but very less website nowadays they are using iframe. Always have asynchronous method to use load the JavaScript, because your website will load faster, right? And that's what happening in the recent technology. It is whatever we are using like Node.js or AngularJS.